I think he may score 20 plus fantasy points for the second week in a row. We're already 4 weeks into the 2025 fantasy football season, and I hope your team has avoided the injury bug so far. We've already seen a few breakouts happening, as well as a few players really underperforming in comparison to their preseason ADP. Obviously, a month into the season, we now have some idea of how some players are going to look, and you more or less have your starting lineup set for the next few weeks. Now, bye weeks are going to come into consideration, but that's a whole nother discussion. But as I'm sure you've learned, start and sit decisions are some of the most important choices you're going to make every single week in fantasy football. Who you choose to start and who you choose to put on your bench could decide your week. Heck, it could decide your entire season. Starting a certain player on a certain week could be the difference between getting into the playoffs and being in the consolation bracket. Heading into week 5, there are several matchups that I think should be exploited in fantasy football, and some players you might be hesitant to start that I think you absolutely should because of the defenses they're going against. If you can take advantage of these matchups with players that are on the come up, that are trending upwards in fantasy leagues, you may have a breakout performance on your hands and win your week. Let's go over 5 players you absolutely have to start this week in fantasy football, players that are going against really easy matchups. Starting off with Woody Marks, rookie running back for the Houston Texans, who's facing the Baltimore Ravens defense in week 5. Marks absolutely broke out against a weak Tennessee Titans defense, excelling both as a runner and a receiver, just like he did in college. Marks was a player I absolutely loved coming out of the 2025 NFL draft. He was a great prospect coming out of college. He's a strong, punishing runner who is also able to make defenders miss with elusiveness. He's got a great burst of acceleration and a lot of receiving upside as well. He showed that in week 4 against Tennessee. In that game, he took 22 touches for 119 total yards and 2 touchdowns. I'd be shocked if Houston doesn't ride with the hot hand in this offense, and an offense that's really struggled before week 4 and continue to feed Marks more touches to get more yards coming his way. As for the Ravens, the defense he's matched up against in week 5, it's no secret their defense is completely banged up. They've lost so many starters to injury, and it seems like every day they're putting a new player on IR. The Baltimore Ravens are currently giving up 406.8 total yards per game, which is second most in the entire NFL. There are going to be so many backups in this contest. I think Woody Marks is going to have a breakout game. I think he may score 20 plus fantasy points for the second week in a row. Woody Marks was a player I was trying to target in deeper leagues this offseason in fantasy drafts, and he's done exactly what I was hoping he would do. Earn a role in this Texans offense, take the backfield, and never look back. Let's just see if that coaching staff is willing to give him that workhorse workload every single week. I'm super excited to see where he ends up at the end of the season, and this is a perfect matchup for him to continue his breakout. Next up, we have Quentin Johnston, third-year breakout wide receiver for the Los Angeles Chargers. Johnston has been dominating in his third year out of TCU. He already has 4 touchdowns in 4 games, and he's emerged as a great deep threat and a fantastic red zone weapon for this Chargers offense and Justin Herbert at quarterback. As far as volume goes, he is trending up in that category. In his last 2 games alone, he's accrued 23 targets. He got 10 in week 3 and a whopping 13 targets in week 4. If you're waiting for a fall off in his fantasy production, I'm starting to get less and less convinced that that's actually going to happen. This is turning into a legitimate breakout. He could finish as a top 15 wide receiver on the season. As far as the matchup, Washington has a pretty bad pass defense. The Commanders are currently allowing 248.5 passing yards per game, which is 5th most in the entire NFL. And it's pretty easy to envision Johnston ripping off a couple massive plays for touchdowns. And I'd be shocked if the Chargers don't dial up a couple deep shots to him early in the game with Justin Herbert at quarterback. He is one of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL. He's off to an extremely hot start to the season, and against a really easy matchup, Johnston is an instant start in week 5. I wouldn't take any struggles from previous seasons into account. It looks like he's breaking out. He's going to be a massive weapon for this Chargers offense for the rest of the season. Plus, the Commanders are already going to have their hands full with Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey, who I think are going to get plenty of targets their way as well. But I'd be surprised if Herbert doesn't pass for over 300 yards against this Commanders defense. So I think all of these receivers are going to have plenty of production in the end. Johnston's been doing some fantastic things this season. I don't think that ends in week 5. He's going to keep on this hot streak he's got in terms of fantasy production, and this matchup just makes things even easier. Next up, we have Dalton Kincaid, tight end for the Buffalo Bills. Another one of these players I absolutely loved coming out of college. He was drafted to the Buffalo Bills back in 2023 in the first round out of Utah. He's had a fairly up and down career so far. He had a really strong rookie season in Buffalo with Josh Allen at quarterback, but in year 2 back in 2024, he struggled with a couple injuries and just didn't look on the same page as his quarterback. That's all changed in 2025. Kincaid and Allen have been on the same page. They've connected on several red zone targets, turning into touchdowns. Kincaid's already scored a career-high 3 touchdowns in 4 weeks. He's become one of the best red zone threats in this offense, and I'd be surprised if he doesn't get another touchdown against New England in week 5. New England's giving up 241.5 passing yards per game this season, which is 6th most in the NFL. I think 2025 NFL MVP quarterback Josh Allen is going to eat this defense alive. I may be able to see the Patriots shutting down the wide receivers of the Bills, but I think Kincaid's going to have a fantastic fantastic game. I mean, you look back at previous games this season, Brock Bowers of the Raiders, he had 103 receiving yards in week 1 against this Patriots defense. The Panthers tight ends in week 4, despite a blowout loss, also found success against this Patriots defense. Volume-wise, Kincaid already has 18 targets in 4 games. It's a pretty solid number for a tight end to get. You have to remember how volatile the position is for fantasy football. This is the perfect matchup for the Bills, and especially Kincaid. I think he's going to have a monster game. If he continues in the same role he's been in, expect a big performance, maybe even a top 5 tight end finish in week 5. And as you know, a big week from your tight end in fantasy can win your week. I think Kincaid has that ceiling in week 5 to be that week winning player. He's emerged as a consistent part of this offense, finally proving the Bills right for selecting him in the first round. He's such a dominant receiving threat, and he's good after the catch as well. I'm excited to see him dominate against the Patriots in week 5. Our next player is Trey Benson, second-year running back for the Arizona Cardinals, who will be playing the Tennessee Titans this week. We already saw Woody Marks dominate the Titans defense last week. I think Benson's going to do the exact same thing. Benson was given the starting job after James Conner's season-ending ankle injury back in week 3. I think he's going to continue to take over Conner's workload. We saw how good Conner was last year in a full season as both a receiver and a runner. He was given a ridiculous amount of touches every single week and made good on them. I think because of the role he's taking on, Benson has a lot of upside, and we saw how good he can be as a PPR guy. He has 16 targets over the first 4 weeks and had 5 total targets last week in his first week as the starter. Tennessee's giving up 141.5 rushing yards per game this year, and that's 5th most in the NFL. I mean, going back to the Marks comparison, Marks, again, dominated as a rusher and a receiver. I think Benson, he gets a ton of touches on the ground and through the air. I think he's going to do the same thing. This could be his breakout game that establishes him as one of those top-tier running backs, or at least a guy who's going to go into next year as the starter. Who knows if James Conner is coming back next year. I think the Cardinals are going to want to see if Benson can be that guy. What better way to test it than by giving him a ton of touches against what looks like a pretty bad opponent and seeing if he can turn in a monster game. I think that's exactly what he's going to do. Arizona's likely going to build a pretty big lead early, giving them a pretty good game script going forward to just run the ball and take their foot off the gas. Benson's going to be a huge part of that. Benson's really going to prove this week if he can be one of those breakout players by taking over James Conner's role. I trust the talent. He was a great prospect coming out of the draft last season, and he's remained really efficient. At one point this season, he was averaging 6 yards per carry, and he still averaged over 4 in his first week as that starting running back. Look for Benson to be a major PPR weapon for fantasy lineups and win you your matchup in week 5. Finally, we have Quinshon Judkins, rookie running back for the Cleveland Browns, who's playing against the Minnesota Vikings defense this week. It's easy to see why Judkins could be a major play after Kenneth Gainwell, the backup running back for the Steelers, tore up this Vikings defense in week 4 with Jalen Warren out of the lineup. The Vikings do have a really good passing defense. They're allowing the 3rd least passing yards per game this season, but their rushing defense leaves a lot to be desired. They're allowing 130.3 rushing yards per game this year, which is 8th most in the entire NFL. This is such a good matchup for Judkins. We don't know if we're going to see Joe Flacco or Dylan Gabriel at quarterback for the Browns in week 5. It's looking more and more like Gabriel after Flacco struggled out of the gate, and whoever it is, they're going to want to lean on this rushing attack, specifically Judkins, who has been a bell cow the last few weeks. After debuting in week 2, he's seen his carries go up every single week from 10 in week 2 to 18 in week 3, and finally 21 in week 4. Browns are showing us that they're willing to give a monster workload to Judkins, and he was a great prospect coming out of Ohio State. I trust the talent fully. This should be a really easy game plan for the Browns to put together. The Vikings have a really good passing defense. The Browns have a really bad passing attack. The Browns have a really good rushing attack. And the Vikings have a really bad rushing defense. Why not give a ton of carries to your rookie running back and see if you can pull off the upset against the Vikings? Also, if you're worried about Judkins in the passing game, don't be. He got 4 targets last week. That's pretty solid for a rookie running back. And overall, I think this is such a good matchup for multiple reasons for Judkins, like I just went over. I think he's in the midst of a breakout. This rookie running back class as a whole is just on the edge of exploding in value. That's kind of why I did put 2 of them in this video. Overall, let me know what you think of my must-start picks this week, and don't forget to put them into your lineups for week 5. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this every single week, giving you fantasy advice for the rest of the season. That's all I got for you guys. I'm Joe, and this is Fantasy Trading Room.